Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for being here today. For today's look, I did a smoky purpley fall look using the ILUVSARAHI and Colourpop Cosmetics collaboration. If you want to see how I created this look, please keep on watching. Thanks! Let's get started. I'm going to use my Stay Don't Stray primer, put it all over the eyelid, and blend it out with my finger. I'm going to blend it out a little bit more towards the end of my eyebrow because I want a nice elongated and dramatic look. Going in with my Tarteist Pro palette, I'm using my E27, a nice and fluffy brush, mixing the shades Classic and Innocent to create my beautiful transition shade. I'm moving that all over the upper crease and the eyelids, so when I put any other shades down, they'll be able to blend nice and smoothly. I also wanted to add in little reviews for both of these eyeshadow palettes. For the Tarteist palette, when I dip into the eyeshadows, they do have quite a bit of fallout. And I don't know if you can catch that in the video, where some of the shadows are just kind of flying everywhere. They do blend out nicely. That's just the only little note that I don't like for these shadows. Using the Colourpop and ILUVSARAHI collaboration in the Saucy palette, I'm using my Y19 brush, picking up the shade Chic Happen, which is a nice purpley matte shade. I'm gonna blend that all over the crease and a little bit higher than the crease, so it also acts as my transition shade. I do go back into the eyeshadow palette and pick it up a few more times, like maybe 2 more times, just so I can add that color into the crease. To make blending the shadows a lot easier, start off with very minimal product. Use windshield wiping motions that are similar to moving just side to side. And don't add too much product when you're trying to bring it into the inner corner or the outer corner, because then it will be very heavy and a lot harder to blend. Using the shade Racy, I'm picking up my Morphe M411 and starting from the outer corner and blending it in. This darker shade, it's more of a dark purple. You do want to be careful because it is very intense. So what I did is just picked up a little bit, started in the outer corner just to place the color down, and whatever product I have on the brush, I'm just moving it forward towards the inner corner of the eye. You do have to be somewhat patient with this step because the color is so intense. So don't dip into the eyeshadow if you feel like you don't have enough on. Just blend whatever you have on the eye and just work your way so you remove all of those harsh edges. And just as a little review for this particular shade, it was very difficult to blend out. I am not a huge fan of it just because when I did even swatch it with my finger, it was very chalky. It has a ton of fallout, and as you can see, it's very difficult for me to blend out that outer corner, and it does leave it very patchy right where my crease is. Don't get me wrong, it's such a beautiful shade. Maybe I just had to add a little bit more primer where I was adding that color, or maybe I was just having an off day, but which tends to happen. But just for that particular video, or for this particular video, it was very difficult for me to blend out that eyeshadow. Adding a bit more of the Racy shade, I put it on the outer corner and just moved side to side, pushing it into the inner corner and all over the crease. Going in with a clean, fluffy brush, I'm using the Morphe M505 just to clean up any harsh edges that I might have created when laying down that purple Racy shade. Using this fluffy brush, I'm dipping back into Racy and placing this all over the outer corner of the eye. I'm just going to pat it down and swipe a little bit towards the crease. I was having a bit of difficulty getting that pigment back into the outer corner. So I'm using my Morphe M441 with no added pigment and just trying to blend out what I laid down with the flat brush. Again with the M505, I'm just blending out any harsh edges I might have created while adding that intense shade to the outer corner of the eye. Racy was a bit difficult to blend out, so I went back in with my E27 brush. I picked up a little bit more of Chic Happens, worked that into the crease moving side to side, and pushed it from outer corner to inner corner as well. Now using my primer, I'm putting a little bit on the eyelids and I'm moving it out with a flat brush. By doing this step with a light primer or concealer, it really intensifies the shimmer shade that you are going to lay down all over the eyelid. For this step, since we're not creating a cut crease, it's okay to just place the primer wherever you want to on the lid. Remembering I had difficulty with the racy shade, I wanted to make sure I had enough primer all over the lid in order for the shade to stay. Picking up the shade Lit, I'm using my ring finger and placing it wherever I put the primer. For this step, just lightly dab all over the lid where you place the primer. Once you do that and you have the shadow all over the lid and on top of the primer, you can move up a little higher to blend up into the other shades. Just as a quick little side note, this was my favorite shade in the whole palette. It was so creamy, so pigmented, and of course I loved it the most because it was purple, my favorite color. With my E18 brush, I picked up the shade Heavy Glam. I started using it in the inner corner of my eye and lightly pushed it up to blend it in with my shade Chic Happens. When working the shadows in the inner corner, you want to lightly dab the color and also move it up. I don't know if you can tell, but I kind of roll my brush right here, and I only do that so I can get as much pigment off of the brush as I can before I dip back into it. And I like to push the color into the crease so it blends in nicely as well. Moving on to the face, I'm using this Nivea Men Post Shave Balm. I'm applying it all over the face, and I like to feel that it's nice and tacky before I actually put my foundation on. Using my Morphe Beauty Blender, I'm going in with my Matte and Poreless Foundation from Maybelline Cosmetics in the shade 120. This foundation is great if you like medium to full coverage. You can always build it up. It is intended for people with normal to oily skin. The only thing is that I have very dry skin, so I do have to use a very moisturizing primer. When applying foundation with your sponge, you want to make sure your sponge is nice and damp, not too wet and not too dry. You want to dab all over the face, and when you get close to the eyebrow or underneath the eye, using the sharper side of the sponge really helps you be very precise. And always remember to blend down into the neck. If you skip this step, your foundation won't look blended and it'll leave a harsh line underneath the jaw. For my concealer, I'm using the Tarte Shape Tape in the shade Fair Beige. I'm doing two little triangles underneath my eyes, and I'm also doing a line up and down my nose, a little bit onto the forehead and on the upper lip. Using the pointed end of the sponge, I'm now going to blend up and down the nose, and I'm also blending the concealer underneath my eyes. For this, all you have to do is lightly dab the sponge and then kind of swipe so you get really close underneath the corners of the eye. To blend my foundation in with the concealer, I like to use the other side that I applied my foundation with and lightly dab that on top of the concealer as well. As soon as I'm done concealing underneath my eye, I like to dip into the Air Spun Translucent Powder with my sponge and just dab underneath the eyes so it sets the foundation in place. I also get smile lines, so I like to set around the mouth as well. Now I'm going to contour my face with this large angle brush from Becca Cosmetics, and I'm going to use the Hoola bronzer to carve underneath the cheekbones. Depending on how strong you want your contour to be, you can always dip back into the Hoola bronzer and add more. Just always make sure to blend it out. When contouring your forehead, always start off with a light hand, move side to side, and use circular motions so it blends into your foundation as well. Alright muchachas, now it's time to hide that double chin. So what you want to do is pick up a little bit more of the Hoola bronzer, move it underneath the jawline, blend it side to side, and blend it down as well down into the neck so it hides it nice and tucked away. With the Morphe M438, I'm going to remove all the translucent powder I used to set underneath the eye and around the smile lines. If your contour is too strong, you can actually use the extra translucent powder to kind of layer over it and it'll blend it down. Or if it takes away from the contour, just go back with a little bit more of the Hoola bronzer. Going in with a flat brush, I'm picking up the shade Chic Happens to smoke out underneath the eye. When smoking out the shadows underneath the eye, you want to pull them all the way to the outer corner so it blends with the top colors as well. With the same flat brush, I'm going to pick up the shade Racy and try to get that darker shade as close to the lash line as possible. I'm also winging it out to the outer corner of the eye. With my Y20, I'm going to pick up the shade Heavy Glam and blend that into the lower lash line as well as touch up to the inner corner and the upper crease. The outer corner was creasing up, so I picked up Racy and just added a little bit more to freshen it up. When starting your eyeliner, try to get the brush as close to the lash line as you can and start with small strokes so you don't have any creasing, and this is the basic shape of your eyeliner. Starting with minimal product on the eyeliner brush will help prevent those creasing lines when applying the eyeliner. It also helps when you're trying to wing out the liner because it's not too heavy and you can be as precise as you'd like to be. After also creating a base of the wing liner that you'd like, you can move in and blend it to the liner all over the lid. If you feel like your eyeliner is not as thick as you would like it to be, you can always go back into the product and pick up a bit more and just layer it on top of your basic shape. Using my eyeliner pencil, I line the upper lid and the lower lid to keep the look nice and smoky. I'm going to apply a light layer of mascara from L'Oreal and it's the Voluminous in Carbon Black. I did add eyelashes at the end of the video, but I was having a difficult time applying them, so I just did it off of camera. With my Morphe G4, I'm picking up the shade Dandelion and I'm just applying that to the apples of my cheeks. If you smile during this step, it makes it a lot easier for your blush to blend into the contour. With some translucent powder and a damp sponge, you can carve underneath the contour to make it look a bit more dramatic. This step is not necessary, but it's just something I like to do. To contour my nose, I'm using this Coastal Scents angled brush again. It's my favorite brush to contour my nose with. I'm focusing the product, which is the Hoola bronzer, more on the lower part of the nose and in the middle of the sides. Whatever product is left on the brush, I like to move it up towards the eyebrows so it doesn't have a harsh stop. Then, I pick up a little bit more of the translucent powder and carve out the nose so it looks a little bit more snatched. This step is not necessary, but it's just something I like to do when I'm doing dramatic looks. Now with my Morphe M438, I'm just going to dust off all the translucent powder underneath the contour. For my lip liner, I'm using the ILUVSARAHI and Colourpop collaboration in the shade Mamacita. When lining your lips, you want to take small steps. That way you don't overdraw or underdraw the lip shape that you desire. I like to draw these 3 lines on my lip because it works as the contour for my lips. It makes them look a little bit bigger and I like my lips to look a little fuller than what they actually are. So this step is a little odd. I like to tuck my upper lip underneath my teeth so it pushes them forward, so it pushes my lip forward and I can overdraw a little bit easier. I really like the formulation of the lip liner because it really glided on so smooth and it was just very pigmented. I'm using the ILUVSARAHI and Colourpop Ultra Matte Liquid Lipstick in the same shade Mamacita, and oh my goodness, I loved this shade. The formula was a little bit watery, but it was very pigmented and it just glided on so smoothly. So what I did is I started in the middle of the lip to get rid of some of that excess product, and then I moved to the sides and I followed the outline that I created with the lip liner. Moving on to the top lip, it's still the same steps that I do with the bottom. I try to work on the lower part of the lip, and if I have to add more product like I did in this case, I just add more and blend it up into the liner that I had created previously. If you make a little mistake like I did, which is okay, just pick up a flat brush with a little bit of foundation or concealer and clean up. Make sure to take small strokes because if you go a little too fast, it might cut into the actual lip. With my Morphe M438, I'm just going to dust off all the translucent powder I used to bake around my nose. Before I highlight, I'm going to set my face with the MAC Fix Plus. I like to do this step to intensify my highlighter. I'm going to be using the Becca Cosmetics highlighter in the shade Moonstone. And I'm using the Morphe M510 to apply the highlighter. With the product that is already on my brush, I'm just going to highlight above the eyebrows. I'm going to add very, very little highlight to the brush, and I'm going to highlight on the chin. All I'm going to do now is just blend the contour a little bit more into the highlight and add just a little bit more of the blush. With my ring finger, I'm going to highlight the bridge of my nose, and with my pinky that doesn't have any product, I'm going to blend that up into the forehead. Now I'm lightly touching up the contour of my nose. And with my ring finger, I'm also going to highlight my cupid's bow. Using the lip liner, I'm adjusting any highlight that I don't want on the lips. Okay, mamacitas, this is the finished look. I hope you guys liked it. Please like my video, subscribe to my channel, leave me a beautiful comment. I really hope you learned something new today. Have a great rest of your day. Happy Halloween. If you want to follow me on social media, I will have them linked down below. Bye!
Can I help you? Okay.